Hi, my name's leowt, and you have found your way to the Conversations Podcast. Conversations exist to create spiritually minded conversations about life. We desire to create safe space for dialogue and community. We desire to come together regularly and intentionally to generate conversations about life, belief, and the intersection of the two. Everyone is welcome at the conversation.
Hey friends, how's it going? It's leowt here with my man Mike. We just couldn't resist going live tonight. So we're going live from the Conversations page. Obviously, if you're seeing this, you know that that's happening at the moment. But we're also going live from Mike's page, TSS Podcast. If you haven't listened to that, you want to give it a listen because he posts all sorts of dope stuff on there. Good conversations, thought-provoking stuff. My man, he sacrificed for all of us, and he did a deep dive into Parler as much as he could.
It was terrible.
I heard it was a bad experience. So, but he's got some good perspective on there. We've done a couple mashup episodes before, and so now we're doing a spontaneous one tonight, just to chat. Because man, the first thing I woke up to this morning was this super straight business, and Mike shot me a message, and he was like, "Bro, have you heard this super straight stuff?" And I was like, "What are you even talking about? Like, I don't understand." And yes, apparently there is a super straight thing happening on the interwebs right now. I just don't understand it. So before we dive in, Mike, why don't you give us just a quick intro to you and your podcast before for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. So
Sure. So my name is Mike. Hi. I do the TSS podcast. It's usually once or twice a month. I talk about usually spiritual things, but I like to deep dive into anything controversial that's happening as well, especially as it stands for oppression of anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this super straight thing this morning, and honestly, the first thing I thought was, okay, I need to inform somebody so I can make people safe, because this is obviously something that is hate breeding hate.
Yes.
So I reached out to you, Leo, and here we are.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Yeah, and we might as well just jump right in at this point, because that's the situation as I see it now. It's this idea of super straight. I hope that my mic isn't picking up all of these S's. But so basically the idea of super straight, from what I can tell, is that it's basically like White Pride Month, which is to say that it's nonsensical, right? Yeah. And so did it start on Twitter? I think that's where it started.
It started on TikTok.
All right.
And it was actually a meme. The guy was just like memeing, and people took it seriously, and they're like, "Yo, that's a really good idea." It was not. It's not a really good idea. You can't just make fun of an entire group of people.
No.
And take it as your own. That's not how shit works.
No, that's not how it goes. Also, like, why do I feel like white guys, in particular, like white straight guys, are like, "Bro, this would be such a great idea. Like, let's get a bar and call it Puzzles." And then everybody will be like, "Why is it called Puzzles?" And that'll be the puzzle. I feel like this is what this is.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I'm embarrassed to be a white male right now.
See, I think that's why I realized that I wanted to talk to you about it, because you're like, "Bro, it's a bad day to be a straight white male."
Yeah.
And you're saying that it's a straight white male. Like,
yeah, it really is. It's just, well, we're like, think about it. We're already like the assholes of the world, right? And then we wake up and we see this shit, and now everyone's going to look at us like, even the people like me who are against it, just another asshole.
Yep.
How are you supposed to move forward when people just make you look like an asshole constantly? How hard is it just to be a good fucking person?
I don't understand.
It shouldn't be difficult.
No, it shouldn't be at all. And like, I guess it was a bad experience. Oh wow. So, sorry. Time out.
Whoa. Wow. It just to be a good fuck. You know what? At least it requoted that.
At least it recorded that. If we got one thing, we got a sound bite. So
yep.
Oh my goodness. I had to get the comments up here because I knew that Justin was going to jump on, and he did not disappoint. He's already up on this page here, but
oh shit, I'm doing the same thing now.
Yeah, I just wanted to see some comments here. So
God damn it.
I think this
Oh
is,
God. Closing it.
I know. Weird things happen. It's like a vocal inception here. Vocal inception. So when I saw this super straight thing, I made a TikTok about it and I got some trolls.
I'm trying
Instagram
again. God
got
damn
some
it.
trolls. But basically what happened is people jumped on my feed right away. And I realized I'm pretty sure a bunch of them were bots, but there was a person that did have an actual conversation back and forth. But the thing is like, what do you need that you don't already have as a straight white male? Like, why do you need another classification? And I'm not hating on straight white males. You are a straight white male. I'm down with you. Like, I'm down to hang out and talk. But
I, as a straight white male, I can wake up every morning. Okay. I can put my clothes on. I can put my shoes on. I can walk out the door. I can drive to work. I can go to work. I can work. I can go home. Mm-hmm. You'll notice one thing that I did not say. I am not scared to walk out the door. Mm-hmm. I am not scared to go to work. I am not scared to be who I am.
Yeah.
That's the difference between, that is my privilege.
Yep.
That is the difference between being a straight white male and someone who's not.
Exactly.
And that is my privilege. And it's something that I was born with, but I also, as someone who has come from someone who was raised in bigotedness, mm-hmm. have had to understand my privilege and understand that other people don't have those privileges.
Exactly.
And
I think that's, give me just 1 second here.
Sure.
I'm getting to be a perfectionist about my camera angle, but
it's important.
That's one thing I appreciate about you is that you've always been like, this is just who I am. This is just where I'm at. And it's not like you're never afraid to ask. You're not afraid to say something. And if you think you might've said something wrong, you don't ever come at it from like I tried kind of attitude. No. You know what I mean? No. And so that's why I think we could have this conversation, because it is pretty embarrassing for someone, really, especially a straight white whale.
That's all right. It's okay. Fat jokes are fine.
For a straight white male to be like, hey, check this out. Look at how special we are. Like, it's okay to be straight. It's okay to be white. But those mm-hmm. things are assumed to be a default. So we don't need super straight as a classification, just like we don't need White History Month. Right. It's not necessary. And as a matter of fact, the thing that I think is the most glaringly obvious about the super straight conversation is this. It is transphobic, period. Mm-hmm. Yep. Because when you're saying you're super straight, you're saying that you literally would not date a trans woman if you're a super straight man, right? So I guess the problem that I see, and I haven't thought this out for a long time, because this is a topic I was just thinking about today, but the thing that I see about the super straight identity is it's an identity based on what it's not. And it's identity based on what it is against. And to me, if you look at those groups in our history that are about things that they're against, and that's the message they put out first, they're the most hateful groups, right? KKK, mm-hmm. Nazis, like anti-abortion clinic folks. Like it seems to me to be that a genuine sense of identity is rooted in what you are and not what you're not. And the super straight conversation only came about as a result of people who felt the need to say we're not into this. And so that's where you can see the transphobic rhetoric just coming out. You know what I mean?
And these aren't people that decided, I'm disenfranchised, I'm not, or I'm being held back or something like that. These are people that didn't like, I don't know how to phrase this. They don't want to have sex with trans men or women.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't. Like, just don't. Like, I don't just stick my dick in anything.
Right. Like,
I mean, it's just not a thing. If you don't want to have sex with someone, just just don't have sex with them. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, on an average, I find it pretty easy to not have sex.
Yeah,
like
I'll tell you what, the older I get, it's getting easier. Yeah.
You're like, bro, every year it's easier to not have sex.
Yeah,
like,
especially the longer I've been married. The longer I'm married, the easier it is to not have sex.
Yeah, you're just like, dude, I'm really tired. Like, we got a lot of shit to do. And I actually really, really like you as my partner, but like... Yeah.
I'm like, yo, it's like 9 p.m. I didn't have my nap today. Like
Elle was finishing her live and I had to laugh because she's like, all right, guys, I'll see you later. I got to go to bed. And I looked at my phone and it was like 8:03. I love it. I love it so much. Justin said that it's a trait of fascism to identify the negative. So I'm waiting to see.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Here we go. He just popped back up. To have an identity rooted in being against something is a trait of fascism.
Yeah,
that would seem to be very incredibly accurate and pertinent. So, like, when I was looking online, I did some research before we just popped off and did a video, which I think is something that many people would benefit from, is doing research before doing a video. Yeah. I digress. But so I was doing some research and I went to some fact-checking websites. So I got to go to Snopes. Snopes is like my first go-to, right? And so I was looking it up and it's unproven at this point, but there's ample visual evidence out there that, first of all, the super straight colors, like, is it Halloween, like orange and black? Like, I'm just not sure.
It's the Pornhub logo.
It's the Pornhub logo. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And it's literally an amalgamation of the Pornhub logo and the Nazi SS logo. Like,
yes.
Are you just not trying to be veiled anymore?
I guess if you're going to be a piece of shit, you might as well be vocal about it. I don't know.
Is this how we get to identify it sooner? It's like, let's just let this flag happen and go out there, and then we can be like, oh yeah.
Well, now it's almost like a gang war. If I see someone wearing orange and black, I'm gonna be like, fuck you.
Talk to you. Unless it's October. Yeah, unless it's October. Or you go to Smethport High School.
Or you're in Syracuse. Like, there's just many things. Yep. So many things.
Yep. Okay, Justin's chatting here. I love it. Machismo implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. There you go. No, that's it. That's right there. It's linking right up to this idea of fascism, and it's linking up to this idea of like cis straight white supremacy. And I think what's like insidious about it is that all of these things are building, and it's like they're trying to corral society into this one thing, right? So go ahead.
Sorry, it's almost like as white males, we've always had the attention, and we're losing the attention. We want it back.
Yes,
I mean, it's obvious. It's like a child who has another sibling, and they're pissed because they have another sibling, so they're acting out.
Exactly. Yes.
They're acting out. I mean, that's also, I would like to point out the fact that they're using the word super, which means better than something.
Superior. Yep.
Yeah, like superior. So they're kind of like saying it's the superior sexuality. But I mean, they're even going as far. Did you watch that video I sent you before we went on?
I sure did. I wish we could throw that up right now.
Yeah,
we'll put it in the links.
Right.
Put it in the comments.
So there's super straight, there's super gay, there's super bi, there's super lesbian, and I don't know why you have to put super in front of any of those things. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't either. So there's a psychological model called the Kinsey scale. Kinsey was a scientist. He was ranking orientation, and this was like a pre-gender conversation. So the Kinsey scale is fairly outdated, but I'm using it just as a tool right now. So the Kinsey scale is like a 0 to 6 scale, and one side is exclusively heterosexual and one side is exclusively homosexual. And the theory is that most people fall somewhere on the spectrum, right? That's kind of where this beginning of, I can't say it's the beginning, but this is another part of the spectral conversation. So this is where this conversation comes in. So you don't have to create super straight. There's literally already a scale where you can say I'm exclusively heterosexual.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the thing, like I said before, the thing with the super straight concept, also, could we not find a better word than super, like a better adjective or something? You know, I don't know. Anyways, but the assertion is that I will have sex with anybody who has the genitals that I prefer, and they have to be the opposite of mine. And so I'll say what I said about our America's conversation about trans youth. Also, like, we're pretty obsessed with genitals. Like, if say I'm a super straight male, and I'm saying male because most of the accounts I engaged with today were males or computers, one or the other. But if I'm a super straight male, I see somebody and they're nothing else than a walking vagina. Like,
right. There's too much focus on the sexual aspect of things. Me personally, I'm with my wife because I love her. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't know, if my wiener got cut off today, I would still be with my wife.
Yep.
Like, that's not going to change.
Nope.
You know? Nope. And if I mean, the labels in general, I've never felt comfortable with. Like, I feel like I just so happened to fall in love with the woman. It could have been anything, it could have been anyone, you know?
Yep.
I just so happened to fall in love with a woman. That's how I see it.
Yep.
So the label, I don't understand why they have to put a label on top of a label.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just making things even worse.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a conflation. And it really is linked to misogyny and to homophobia and to transphobia. And there's like no way to get around it, because if you say you know what I mean? I watched a TikTok. I actually do edit it. So if you go on my TikTok, which is at spiritually NB, letters NB, leowt, you can see my TikTok. But I did a duet with a pretty trending TikTok on the matter. And it was like, you can say you like women, right? Right. But if you say you only like white women, guess what that makes you? A racist. You know what I mean? It's not about having a preference. You can have a preference. Like, no one said you can't be straight. But when you say you're super straight, you're going to the level of saying that I am straight, but not like that. Like, I can't like that kind of a woman. So you're, you know what I mean? You're putting a classification on it. And this one, much like a racist classification, is a transphobic classification. Like, it lines up logically, and there's no other reason for that. Because if you want to talk about procreation, first of all, there's no space in the conversation to talk about procreation, because people have tried to throw that at the LGBTQ community for a long time. So I'm well versed in this argument. And the fact is that there are a lot of heterosexual relationships where procreation is not possible. Right. And so you can't say it's about procreation, because are you having a baby every time you have sex with that person? No. Okay. Well, then it's not about procreation, right? No, it's not. I mean, it's not. So, oh man, I just don't understand. And I think that one of the most insidious things, Lori pointed out on the feed here, she pointed out the idea of like a recruiting aspect. And I think that that's what worries me the most, is that there's a really strong chance that crazy ideas like this, they catch on. And they catch on in what I like to refer to like the lowest common denominator of our society. Yeah. So when you're a public speaker, I like to use this analogy. When you're a public speaker, you have to speak to the lowest common denominator, to the person who is in the room, who is going to take your ideas and twist them the most crazy way, right? You've got to speak to that person. And so what happens is we've got these ideas being put out, and they're luring people into this system of misogyny and transphobia and homophobia and racism, kind of speaking broadly here, but they're luring them into these systems. And that really, I think, what worries me, because it's literally a recruitment into another hate group. Like, do we need another group to prove that straight white males are the most privileged group in society? I don't think so, you know?
I mean, you don't, because all you got to do is open your eyes.
Literally.
Just look outside.
Literally. Yep. And that's not to say straight white males are bad. You, for example, are a great person. Justin, great person. Both straight males. You know what I mean? And you're not threatened by the idea that there are people who are different than you. As a matter of fact, you both
Right.
embrace it openly.
Right.
And so I guess I just don't see that open and embracing perspective of the super straight individuals on
Just from browsing Twitter, I do see some people that are kind of taking it seriously in the like embracing everything as a whole.
Mhm.
But the problem is where it was rooted.
Mhm.
It was rooted in hate. So
Yeah.
even those people that are trying to take it seriously, there's always a bad apple in the bunch. The problem
Yes.
is the bad apple connects with the other apples and it makes everything rotten.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, that would be like having a straight pride month. You know what I mean? Like, these are similar ideas in so much as they're just a redundancy of an obvious situation in society, right?
Right.
And like you said, so there are people who take it seriously, but to my question would be like, why do you feel the need to identify as super straight? Like, it's already an assumption. Like, you're like, oh, I'm better than the assumption. That's the only notion that I can find, is that better than.
It throughout the day, I like to try to put myself into other people's shoes and think of things through different lenses.
Mhm.
So earlier on my lunch break at work, actually, I sat there and I thought about it, and I couldn't actually come to a logical conclusion as to why I would consider myself super straight.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I have a preference for, women.
Mhm.
I still don't understand why I would ever put myself above anyone else by adding that word super. And I think the real problem I have is that word.
Yeah.
Because it is, the intent of that word is putting yourself above another group of people. And the fact of the matter is nobody is better than anybody else.
Mhm.
We're all born, we all die.
Mhm.
We start, we end.
Mhm.
We have a journey in the middle, and it's up to us what we do with it.
Mhm.
And nobody's better than anybody else because of it.
No, exactly. And I've seen like a couple of conversations, and I've seen a couple of threads. Like, I dove in genuinely trying to find some stuff, but everything was like, it was based on this reactionary perspective of like, well, like, oh, how could you hate on me? You know what I mean? And it really is. It's like a rich kid throwing a temper tantrum because they didn't get what they want or something. It has that air to it. And so it's like, okay, in what way is this beneficial? In what way is this helpful? And in what way is this about what it's about and not what it's not? It's not possible to do that.
They immediately went into the victim role.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. I mean, they even went as far to call it superphobia.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a blatant play on transphobia.
Blatant.
It's blatant. I mean, if you need anything to tell you that this is hate speech, it's that.
Yeah,
like it's like you're the entire group is picking on trans people. The entire group, and they're masking it with GoFundMe fundraisers and stuff like that. But
I missed the GoFundMe.
You didn't know about that. Okay, so they did a GoFundMe for rape victims, which is great, except for they're still. I don't have the words. It's almost like they're saying, okay, we're pieces of shit, but sometimes we do good things. It's like when the Hells Angels does like charity. They're still pieces of shit. Don't tell them I said that because they'll kill me, No,
I know what you're saying though. It's just like, this is not a beneficial situation. And I mean, I don't know the demographics on this, so I probably shouldn't say it, but like, I would be really interested to know the demographics on the population of people who are most likely to perpetuate sexual violence too, because it would seem to me that there's a very good chance that those are overlapping,
Yes.
And also, like, why weren't you fundraising for rape victims before? Like, did you need this for some, like, did you need the creation of this group to make that possible? Because I don't necessarily think so.
That's possible too, but
no, I don't know, man. It seems to me like there's a lot of movements in you'd be hard pressed to not consider like American politics in this, because like there has been so much movement in the past 4 years, a little bit over 4 years now. Thank goodness that we're past that. But in the past presidency, the past 4 years, there has been a move to make people believe that they're victims. And I think that was a strategic part on the part of conservatives and on the, and this is an overarching conversation, so stick with me, on the part of conservative people politically, on the part of conservative church communities, and on the part of poor white people, right? To get those people to align and be like, we're the victim, we must take it back. Right. Yes. This is the same thing that happened with slavery. Right. And I know this all seems extrapolated, but listen, like, so I learned this recently. Justin, don't laugh at me that I didn't learn this sooner, but I actually learned like some more history about slavery because I am dedicating myself to being anti-racist, right? Because that's an attitude that requires cultivation, just as being interfaith does. These are things that require activity. So I was learning about the history of racism. And so when our capital was still in Virginia, there was an insurgency, right? And what happened was the enslaved Black people and the poor indentured servants that were of white skin, right? Those poor people from both of those groups realized, the system has its boot on our neck. And so they went and they're storming, the Capitol, right? They're storming the head of the government at the time. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of race came about because the government realized they needed to separate the poor white people. And I say white because they weren't even called that yet. They needed to separate like the poor Irish indentured servants and the enslaved Black people, because they knew if those two groups got together, then they'd be taken down. And I almost see what's happening with Super Straight, with Straight Pride, with the MAGA stuff. Like all of that was an attempt to get people to vilify the other that's already oppressed, right? We're so pumped on vilifying the oppressed in American society that we make movements that are literally can't be described as anything but about the oppression, And I think that's exactly what's happening, like in this case right now.
Right. Well, because think about it. The people who are going to jump on this train are, most likely going to be the same people who were, MAGA supporters. Yeah. You've got the uneducated, the poor, the people who grew up in areas much like the area that we're in, and they're the people that are going to continue it on, because even after this trend, and this is a trend, wears off, those people, it's still going to be here. Exactly. And it's still going to keep going. And that's how hate is facilitated.
Exactly.
And there's already hate in their hearts. So
exactly. That's the whole basis of it, is a hate-based agenda and anti-agenda. Yeah. And like Justin so dutifully pointed out, that's a literal trait of fascism. Yes. It's not about equality. It's not about equity. It's not about justice. It's about it's a bait and switch. It's a cultural bait and switch, because if we hate the Black person, if we hate the Mexican, if we hate the immigrant, if we hate the gay, then the top 1% are still lining their pockets while we're here laughing, kids on the playground fighting while they're robbing the house. You know what I mean? And to me, that's like the most insidious thing. Like you have to be looking at that. And at this day and age, especially when you see something as absurd come up as Super Straight. First of all, it doesn't sound intelligent. Second of all, they're using a literal SS logo. Like there's just too many things. You know what I mean? There's too many things. What do you think? So what do you think, right? You're a straight white male. By default at this moment, I know you love your wife, so I don't want to say by default, but you're a straight white male because you fell in love with, you know what I mean? What would you say to how would you explain this to your kid? How would you explain this to a younger kid who's genuinely like, okay, so I'm straight. And they're like, oh, maybe this is like a gay thing. Maybe this is, what we do. How would you personally explain this?
Well, I mean, with my child per se, I don't use the term straight, gay, bi, anything like that, because I don't want any influence as she grows up in that. I try not to allow any hatred to seep in at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're just trying to keep categories out of there.
I'm trying to keep categories out of it, because if my daughter decides that she wants to fall in love with a woman,
mm-hmm.
I'm happy about that. That's awesome, you know?
Right.
And I feel like I shouldn't, even as a parent, have any influence over that,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. So so essentially what you're saying is you're trying to create an environment where she doesn't feel the need to come out because there's nothing to come out.
Because there's nothing to come out to.
Right.
Yeah. Like everything, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to come out to.
Mm-hmm.
I never want her to feel scared. I never want her to feel like she can't bring her boyfriend, girlfriend, any friend,
mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
I want her to feel comfortable in her own skin.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? Because I feel like that's something that the LGBTQ plus community has always struggled with, and while I have never gone through it,
mm-hmm.
I've witnessed it with a lot of friends,
mm-hmm.
and I hurt with them, you
mm-hmm.
know.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's the thing. So like some people want to be in a post-racial or a post-identity society, and we're not quite there yet, I think, in terms of a society. But I think in terms of raising my children, I think it would be completely normative, especially in terms of like relationship, to just talk about relationships. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because then you're not setting that up. I don't see that as an erasure of identity. Apparently, I think if you look at one of my favorite things to talk about, and if someone takes this and makes it a book before I do, I'll cut their fingers off. But one of my favorite things as a thinking person is to look at what I like to phrase as to look at the thing behind the thing. And so when I hear, I talked about this with transgender athletes, like, right, when I hear a person saying, well, I want my daughter to have a fair shot at a scholarship, they're not saying, they're saying they don't want her to have to compete against trans girls. But what they're really saying is they can't afford college, right? And so the thing behind the thing for me seems to be that it would seem to me that straight white males, and there are some females that I've seen out there, but it's by and large been male, but there's an erasure of identity. And that's what I'm hearing, but you don't have to base your identity off of being anti something else. Like if you feel like you don't have enough of an identity, get a hobby, volunteer, do something, but don't just double down on your ideas of exclusion. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm just kind of thinking like what the thing behind the thing with being super straight would be.
What I want to know is, when did critical thinking go out the window? Like, remember in school, I know we were brought up differently, but remember in school when they used to have a problem and you had to dig down and find the root cause of that problem?
Yes.
When did we stop doing that? Yep. I use that daily in my job and in my life.
Yep.
And I feel like if people would just take, whether it's politics, religion, anything, just take your problem, dig deeper, find the root cause, it would just make the world a better place, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. And I said that, it was on Conversations this past Sunday. If you're watching this now and you don't know it, I drop a live video every Sunday on Facebook. And then on Monday, I drop on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So you can catch the conversation in multiple ways. But this past Sunday, I was talking with Justin, my man, who's up in here on the comments about some stuff. And we really kind of hit on a lot of what we're talking about tonight in terms of like what's happening and what's going on behind the scenes that leads people to need to kind of make this flagrant, like grandstanding type of statement. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's crazy.
I don't know. I feel I'm at a loss for it. I just hope that this whole thing passes quick and it doesn't keep catching on, which I fear that it will, especially in smaller communities.
Yeah, for sure. Because what could happen eventually, I think, is that you'll see people who didn't know that it was ill-intentioned kind of being like,
Exactly.
oh, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But like you said, and like Justin and I were talking about, like we as a society have to remember how important it is to think critically. And there's so many ways in which we don't, and we've structured our society out of the need to think critically. But if you really sit back and look at the thing behind the thing and try to see what's happening and try to engage in dialogue and try to really think about it, like if you're so this is, I guess along these lines, this would be my challenge to anybody that feels like they might be super straight. So like, why do you feel that way? Like, what is
Right.
what, and not, I'm not talking about what kind of genitalia you like. I'm talking about what makes you feel like you need to have this identity that would supersede an identity that you already have. And again, it's funny because the word super is used in that word,
Right.
you know what I mean? But like, what is the thing behind the thing, and what would be the need or the draw of this? And can you see, this is another critical thinking part, like, can you see how this would be actively harmful to some people,
Right.
Can that be seen? Because if someone can answer yes, they could see how it could be harmful. And if we can dialogue about why they feel like they need to identify as super straight instead of just straight, maybe there's a conversation to be had there, and maybe that's a conversation starter instead of a conversation ender. You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, I don't walk around feeling the need to say I'm super queer. Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm just a better queer than everybody else. Like, are you better straight?
I do queer better than you.
Yeah, but that's literally what the word superimpose.
Exactly.
What it implies is that like, I am better at this, or I'm better than this, and it just like, it's very troublesome. It's very fascist, and it very much ties into a lot of these insidious undercurrents that we're already seeing in our world. And frankly, those are the undercurrents that led to the attack on the Capitol. Those are the undercurrents that are leading to Black men still having their lives ended by police since George Floyd. You know what I mean? I'm in Rochester right now, and I saw a say his name Daniel Prude sign, and I can't like. It's still happening. And so all of these insidious anti-undercurrents are driving so much of the strife and struggle that we see right now, I think.
And I think a lot of it too is because someone always has to be anti something. So if you're pro Black Lives Matter, someone else is going to be pro Blue Lives Matter. Why? Here's a crazy thought. Why can't you just be both? Why can't you support Black Lives Matter? I do. And still want the police to succeed in a better way.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be polemic.
It doesn't have to be polarized. It doesn't have to be jinx. Like things can be together. It's okay. You don't have to. Things don't have to be so spread apart. And there's a song by a band I listen to called Anti-Flag. Have you ever heard of Anti-Flag?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I love Anti-Flag. It's called How to. Oh my God, I have to Google.
Hit the Google machine up.
How to Start a War. Anatomy of Your Enemy.
Okay.
I'm looking up the lyrics right now.
Perfect.
And it's oh God. I don't know, but it's essentially just creating dissent, creating a divide. So so people have to fight. And it's an amazing song. We should put that in the show notes too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think that's, I keep saying this, that's the thing, but there are so many subtexts to this conversation. And one of the subtexts is literally it's a manufactured sense of disenfranchisement.
Yes.
Because you're not disenfranchised in this country if you're white. You're not Nope. I didn't say that right. You're not disenfranchised because you're white.
Right.
You're not disenfranchised because you're straight. Right. You may have other areas of intersectionality, other things that make you oppressed. Like if you are poor, right?
Right.
That is something that you can be oppressed because of, right? If you're poor, you are oppressed, but you're not oppressed because you're white, right?
Right.
You can be white. Catch this, everybody who's watching. You can be white and oppressed, but it's not because you are white.
Correct.
And I think that's the same thing with straight. Like, you can be straight and oppressed, but it's not because you're straight. Right. Because the whole conversation relies on power dynamics. And if you're already in a position of power, you cannot be oppressed by that, which is already at the top of the power system.
And I think I don't know why I feel the need to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So as a guy, a straight white male growing up, I was always taught that my emotions weren't valid. Mm-hmm. And that creates kind of a hardened shell. Mm-hmm. And that's what creates those defense mechanisms that come up in these particular situations. Like when I grew up, I mean, in a fairly bigoted family. You know, there were let's just say we didn't have a lot of black friends. Yeah. You know, we gays, they weren't going to come in my house. Mm-hmm. Let's just put it that way. Mm-hmm. And I always knew something was wrong, but I had to fight through that shell, that hardened shell, and grow out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's just, I feel like once men can start embracing their emotions, they can live a lot easier. Yeah, there's less hate.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because, well, here's the thing too, like, I'm gonna just drop this out there from a little like psychological perspective, is that hate and anger, we're gonna put those words roughly in the same category for the sake of this statement, but anger is never a primary emotion. Right. Anger is a secondary reaction, as a secondary emotion that's a reaction to another emotion. So anger is here. What's the thing behind the thing? Right. And that's, I think, where we see a lot of trouble, especially with males in society. And I know I've seen this with raising a son, is it's really hard to explain to him it's okay to be angry, but you need to think about why you are angry. Yes. And I think that you see that sort of it's almost an executive dysfunction amongst males, because males are cultured in our society to not be in touch with their feelings. Yes. And so this is a moment where you personally are not oppressed because you are a straight white male, but you are having an area of oppression when it comes to to stating your emotions, right? Yes. So there's a delineation there. And so you don't need to go make a, angry white males club, although that might be a good synonym for super straight, but
there you go. Yeah. AWM, angry white male. God.
Yeah, but I think you're so right. And I think that's a conversation that needs to happen too. And I think it has to happen with dudes. It's so funny for me, because this is a point where, like, if you and I walked into a bar and we started having this conversation, everybody would look at me like, what the fuck, when I say what I'm about to say. But I was raised to show my emotions because I was socialized as a female. Right. And so in many ways, I'm very effeminate, and I'm not afraid of that. You know what I mean? Like, my cat got out the other day and I started crying. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel my feelings. You know what I mean? But I don't have any trigger in my brain that says, don't feel that, Yeah. And
I went to a funeral, just as an example. I went to a funeral on, it was Thursday of last week, and I didn't cry until I was alone in the car afterwards. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't because I was telling myself I can't cry, but it's because I've conditioned myself throughout so many years to not cry in public that it wouldn't activate until I was alone. It's I literally can hear things in my head right now. People telling me real men don't cry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you can connect that. I can think of multiple times in pop culture that I've heard people say that. And so you can connect that as a person who was cultured as a male, who was socialized as a male, you can hear those literal voices in your head still saying that. And of course, that leads to a state of really fragile masculinity, unfortunately, because if you are a strong person, then you can think critically and you can handle acting in an appropriate manner, no matter what you are feeling.
Right.
But if you have a sense of fragile masculinity, where you just get angry and you just rage. That is a sign of fragility, not strength.
And it's dangerous.
It's dangerous.
Yes. It's and I know it's dangerous because it's something I've been working through for years, you know, and I'm not ashamed to say that, because when you're actively working on something and we're actively trying to get better on something, that's progress, and any progress is good progress.
Yes, absolutely. So you find that to be something that you have to consciously think about in your brain.
100%. I when I was, I was 18, I went to counseling for anger issues. And it was because I would just go from 0 to 100. Like it was nothing, and I think a lot of that is just suppressed emotions.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
For sure. Yeah. One of my professors used to use the analogy of a beach ball, and they would always say emotions are like a beach ball. So you can press them down below the surface, but eventually they're going to pop back up.
Yep.
But if you've ever watched a beach ball pop back up, it doesn't come straight up. It goes all sorts of wonky and does its own thing, which makes it less predictable.
Yes.
And I think that's the same thing with the emotions. And then, so now pair that fragile masculinity with a manufactured sense of disenfranchisement.
Yep.
That's like gas and a match.
It is. Yes.
And that's what incites capital riots. I don't know how to lay this out any more of a linear manner than that. You know what I mean? And it's so interesting because we started out talking about super straight. We worked down to your feels.
Yeah.
But it's all connected.
It's all connected. And the reason I went down to my feelings and everything is to show that it doesn't, you don't have to be the person who's the asshole that is calling themselves super straight. You're allowed to be emotional. You're allowed to, your feelings are valid too. As a straight white male, your feelings are valid.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have those feelings. You're not allowed to use those feelings to fuck over other people.
Yes, exactly. That's the same thing I try to teach my 12-year-old is that your feelings are valid. And I try to say this at every point when I'm having this conversation. Your feelings are valid.
Yes.
But you are still responsible for how you are acting when you're feeling these things. There has to be a switch in your brain. And I think that's part of the kind of boiling, simmering pot of stuff that's led us to where we are, is that there's not an accountability for emotion. So you start out with don't show emotion.
Yep.
And then you don't hold people accountable for when they do show emotion. And it's the self-perpetuating cycle. And then when you take that one insular situation that's happening emotionally and personally, and you blow that out to a whole subsection of society who is cultured, in the same manner, that creates issues. And then if you get a crazy egomaniac who is behind a megaphone, or in this case, a podium or a White House, and they very intentionally poke at those things. For the past 4 years, someone has been telling straight white people that they are under attack.
Yeah.
And so you poke at that, and then you get insurrections.
Yep.
And then you get public lynchings of innocent Black men. And I say innocent because the reality is in America that you're innocent until you've been tried in court, right? Yep. And then you get, I have to throw this out there, but if we want to talk about Black trans women, let's talk about that. Because I actually read for Trans Day of Remembrance this year. I participated in a church service where I simply read the name, the date of birth, and the date of death of all of the trans people that were victims of violence in this past calendar year. It took me 46 minutes.
Wow.
Just to read the names, date of birth, and date of death. And that was a worldwide statistic, for the record. It took me probably 15 to 20 to read America. So it was still, so you can't tell me that as a straight white person, right? That you're oppressed. You can't tell me as a male that you're oppressed because patriarchy runs across ethnic and racial backgrounds. You know what I mean? But you certainly can't tell me that you're oppressed when you talk about the double, the exponential privilege of being straight, white, cisgendered, male, American. And if you add on to their conservative or religiously and politically, that's 7 points of privilege, right?
Right.
Now almost everybody has some point of privilege, except unless you're an indigenous woman or a Black trans woman, you probably don't have many points of privilege, but you could still have economic privilege. It would depend. But like, I have points of privilege. I'm a trans person, but I'm white and I can pass as straight. I am in no way straight, but I could play it off, So I have points of privilege. There are points of privilege where I've realized that my relationship to the police, like, I grew up expecting the police to be good, being taught that. And then I was really kind of devastated when I realized they weren't. But I realized that my partner, who is brown, never understood the police to be on their side.
Yeah.
I'm in a Bible class with I'm in a Bible class with a bunch of gays, a bunch of Muslims, and a bunch of females right now, and it's the best Bible class ever.
That sounds fantastic.
It is really good. It's just really good. And so in one of my responses, I wrote something about just feeling disenfranchised or kind of disenchanted with Old Testament God, because Old Testament God is kind of a dick. And so I was really like, ew, I mean, like, I don't understand this. And then one of my classmates responded, she's a Black female who is queer. And she responded with, it's interesting that you're having this interaction to the text, because I actually never saw myself as supported in the Bible. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like, these points of privilege, it's important to recognize them, because if you don't recognize them, then you're the asshat who starts super straight.
Yeah, exactly. And I tell you what, it has taken me a long time to recognize my privilege. And I feel like every time something like this happens, I have to figure it out, Oh, did I lose my audio? Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. You're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear. I don't know what happened, but just like the other day when I texted you and I was like, I won't get into the conversation, but I was just like, yo, am I like, is my privilege showing in this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I do that often. Now, most of the time I text my wife, but she was busy. So
I got you.
Right. So it's just, you have to check yourself sometimes,
Yeah, exactly. And that's not scary. Like, it's having privilege is not a bad thing. Let me put it this way. No person, almost no person gets to control the privilege that they have. Right. The system controls the privilege. Yes. Right. The system gives power. Right. Yes. And so, like, you don't have to, I'm not telling you, like, screw you for choosing to be a straight white male, right? Mm-hmm. But you are still also responsible for the privilege you have. You know what I mean? Right. It's a similar interplay with feelings. Like, they're valid, but you're still responsible for how you act based on them, Yes. And I think that perhaps there's a bigger conversation needed around this reality of, bro, just admit you have privilege. Like, if you're a poor white man in America, you're still richer than rich people in other countries.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know, but I think that there's so many layers to unpack, and it's just the conversations like this need to happen, because otherwise this idea is going out unchecked, and it's going out under the guise of being, like, an identity or being an affirmation, and it's not. No, it's not. I mean, if you want to start a straight white, it's a meme.
It's a meme.
If you want to start a straight white male privilege club, and where you use that privilege, cool. Like, I've actually had friends God, I'm going to throw out a name because I like this dude, and he might be embarrassed because he wouldn't want the light on him. But I have a friend named Mike Marvin, and he's a really dope dude. He's involved in a lot of nonprofit work. He's incredibly intersectional. He's very much a feminist, and he's very much an ally. He
was also my Java professor in college.
Oh, no way. I didn't know that.
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah. And so he does his best whenever he's in a public setting. He does not speak unless he is called upon. When we were at the city with the town hall meetings this summer regarding Black Lives Matter and racism in Olean, he said, this is not my place to speak. Like, he is on record saying that. Someone asked him to speak, and he's like, no, I'd like this person to go first. But at the same time, when I've been in meetings with him, he's like, listen, sometimes people will listen to me more because I'm a straight white male. So if you need me to say something, I will. Right. And that's the way to use privilege. He's not saying I'm going to play some sort of privilege to benefit me, but he's saying, I see the system as broken. I know the system will see me more than they'll see you. And so, like, that's a way to have a conversation around privilege without it being abusive, you know?
Yep. I mean, I've had people reach out to me, and I won't give names, but because I'm a straight white male, and maybe they are going into a situation that they're uncomfortable with, and just my presence, even if I don't say a thing, just my presence being there makes them feel more comfortable in the situation.
Absolutely.
And I'm okay with that, because if that's what I have to do to further progress, then that's what I'll do. I mean, how hard is it to just have a beard and be silent? I'm cool with it.
Exactly. You know? Exactly. I love it. I feel like that's some sort of brand for you.
Yeah, right. It really is.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, my friend. Thank you so much for hopping on and chatting with this. If there is one thing that you could say to the world, to all of the tens of listeners that I have.
Well, I'll tell you what. You did your conversation's beginning.
Yeah.
I'll do my TSS ending.
Yes.
Okay. So I always end it with this. Always remember, you matter. You are valid. You are important. Things happen every single day, and we can't change that. But you're always strong enough to move on the next day. And if you need anybody to talk to, if you need to message anybody, I'm here. I'm always here to talk. Have a wonderful night.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you have comments, drop them. We're both here to check them out.
Peace.
Bye.
This has been the Conversations Podcast. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions or comments, or just want to get involved, feel free to join the conversation on social media. You can find us at Conversations Official on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And please don't forget to rate, follow, and share this podcast. We're available on Anchor, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.